letter from the Gantry.
Thank you, Neil. I'm sure you've all read or listened to the very deserving tributes paid to Denis Law, who passed away a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago. I saw him play, but he retired a few months before I started commentating. In fact, one of my early assignments was being sent by London Weekend Television in the late summer of 1974 to Aberdeen, his home city, to interview Denis about why he'd finished such a glittering playing career quite abruptly. He'd been in the Scotland squad at the 1974 World Cup finals, and we knew then that his last touch in league football had been to backheel the goal which won Manchester City that derby at Old Trafford, but to be factually correct, did not relegate Manchester United to the second division. The Red Devils would still have gone down if it had finished 0-0. It was an interview beyond my station, really. I'd only been in television a year, and much of that had been spent behind the scenes. My first commentary was still 4 months away. Denis, however, was charming. He had a great sense of fun, a twinkle in his eye, and a mischievous side, all of which he retained to the very end. He was also very strong-willed and turned aside any suggestions that there would be a comeback. There never was, which was why I was surprised to find his name on the list of players going to Florida some 7 years later under the banner of the Commentators 11, a team which had been going around the country playing Sunday charity matches for several years and which would continue to do so until the start of the Premier League, when Sunday broadcasts made it impossible. There had been tours before to Spain with guest players, but this was to be a real adventure made possible by a connection with Tampa Bay Rowdies of the then North American Soccer League. I learnt to my delight that it wasn't just Denis who agreed to go. There was World Cup winner Roger Hunt. There was fellow Liverpool legend Ian St John, by now at the start of a television career which led to the hugely popular Saint and Greavesy programme. Ian, like Denis, a Scotland international. The goalkeeper would be Peter Mellor, who'd helped Fulham to the FA Cup final as a second division team in 1975. Teddy Maybank, who'd played for Chelsea in the old First Division at the age of 18, was also on the trip. The commentators were in fact in a minority, but John Motson, Alan Parry, Jim Rosenthal and myself were all on the plane to Tampa. It was a great experience on the field and off it. I played up front with Sir Roger, as the Anfield fans christened him. And going into added time in one of our games against very enthusiastic American opposition, we were 3-2 down. He sorted that out with 2 crisp finishes and we won the game. But Denis did not play, despite our entreaties to get him onto the pitch, even for a cameo appearance. And you can imagine how much pressure we put him under, especially the ex-pros. That single-minded approach that made him a world-class goalscorer enabled him to stick to his guns. There is a squad photo, and he wouldn't even put on a kit for that, though he has his arm round the Saint and is clearly one of the boys. Directly after that, I found myself working with Denis on Granada Television. I joined from Yorkshire TV, the deal being done while I was in Florida. Denis was the resident analyst and expert. He didn't duck the major issues, though. I'm sure he didn't see himself as punditry and being a pundit for a long time, and he wasn't, as it turned out. He loved the big games, as he did as a player. On the screen, as on the pitch, he sprinkles stardust. Denis was one of 7 children and had 5 of his own. His daughter Di came into football in the communication department at Old Trafford. She was a tremendous press officer, combining the best interests of the club with a deep understanding of how the media operated. She was so like her dad. When she said no to a media request, she meant it, a real chip off the old block. All we tourists back in 1981 would have loved to have been on the same pitch as Denis, but at least he was there on the touchline. His critiques of our performances were witty and often withering. Maybe given his very public lack of joy at England winning the World Cup, he went off to a golf course refusing to watch that final, meant that lining up alongside Roger Hunt, one of the boys of '66, was a step too far. He called that day the end of the world. He was a one-off, an all-time great, and true to his name, Denis was a law unto himself.